I like a good villain. He's not. He's a pathetic villain.
Welcome to Books and Banter, a podcast about books. I'm Janine, a library clerk.
And I'm Jess, branch admin.
And we both work at the Winkler branch of South Central Regional Library. In this podcast, we talk about books with our own twist. We read the first half of the book and predict where it might be going, and then finish reading the book and discuss the second half.
There will be snark, there will be spoilers, and depending on the book, there may be references to violence, sex, and other adult topics. So if that's not for you, stop listening now.
All right, let's get into this week's book. Today we're diving into The Teacher by Freida McFadden. It's her latest book. So summary of the book. Lesson number 1, trust no one. Eve has a good life. She gets up each day, gets a kiss from her husband Nate, and heads off to teach math at the local high school. All is as it should be, except last year, Kasem High was rocked by a scandal involving a student-teacher affair with one student, Addie, at its center. But Eve knows there is far more to these ugly rumors than meets the eye. Addie can't be trusted. She lies, she hurts people, she destroys lives. At least that's what everyone says. But nobody knows the real Addie. Nobody knows the secrets that could destroy her. And Addie will do anything to keep it quiet. So this book was published February 6, 2024. This is Freida McFadden's 22nd book, according to the list of books on her website, and is a standalone. Freida McFadden is a practicing physician specializing in brain injury who has penned multiple best-selling psychological thrillers and medical humor novels. Freida lives with her family and black cat in a centuries-old 3-story home overlooking the ocean, with staircases that creak and moan with each step, and nobody could hear you if you scream. Unless you scream really loudly, maybe. So a couple of, I think these were frequently asked questions from her website that I thought were kind of funny. So, how do you come up with your twists? My brain? I get asked this question a lot, and seriously, I'm not sure how to answer. And then, this one, so now I feel like I need to read this book, but it says, what's up with the twist in Suicide Med? You know what I mean, Freida. That was my first thriller, and my husband was a bad influence. Enough said.
It does make me think I need to read that book, because now I'm curious about a twist.
I know.
Although it is really disappointing when everybody's like, oh, it's such a twist, and you read the book and you're like, what twist? Like, this was so obvious.
So maybe things are obvious to you that aren't obvious to other people, because I was telling you not too long ago I read one of her books, and I thought, like, I wasn't even halfway through, and I was sure that I had that whole book figured out, and I had everything wrong in the end, and it was like twist after twist after twist. So you may think you have everything figured out, but I feel like there might be a twist that gets you.
It's entirely possible. Let's talk about the cover first, because we always forget that.
Yep.
It's fine. It's very classic teacher vibes in terms of apple on desk.
Yep.
With a knife implying its suspense. I don't mind the cover.
I think they should have had, like, blood from the letters.
I think they would have been a step too far.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's subtle horror versus...
gore.
Like, you know, Friday the 13th type of horror where it's like, haha, you're now just a caricature of yourself. So.
Yeah. It's a fine cover. It's not, like...
It's not mind-blowing. It's not bad enough for me to hate it. It's not good enough for me to rave about it and read it based entirely on the cover. More
so I would look at the cover and see the author's name and think, okay, I'm going to pick up this book.
Yeah.
Like, or it's got a picture of, I think this was The Housemaid, which I think was the first book of hers that, like, really started to take off.
Yeah.
And over, like Book Talk or Bookstagram. So now people have just been reading her like crazy.
Yep.
And The Housemaid was the first one of hers that I read too. And I read it like last summer. And so like in the last half of the year I read 4 of her books. And now this is my 6th of hers that I've read, so.
I have read none of her books.
Except this one. And so far, from what you were telling me earlier, you're not super impressed.
I hate every single character in this book.
Yeah.
They are all horrible people.
I don't think you're supposed to like them.
I know, but normally, like, there's somebody where it's like, okay, I can see that maybe you're just going through a rough time, or maybe you've got, you know, hidden depths.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. I just hate everybody. Like, they're all just horrible people.
They are not great people, I will give you that.
Like, no, it just...
But did you, like...
It's well written enough for me to hate them.
Yeah. Did you also, like... so, like, Addie, there seems to be a lot of mystery around Addie. And, like, what happened actually last year with her and the teacher and all of these things. So that's... For me, that's one of the things that I'm like, okay, what's really going on here? You know? And...
Yeah, I want to know, but on the other hand, it's also one of those things where I'm like, both of them... Like, the teacher that it happened with is giving me creepy vibes.
Yeah.
And she's giving me, we're going to hear about her on the news one day vibes.
Yeah.
So, it's not really, like, quite honestly, if it was him that was at fault, I'd go, huh, really? If it was her that was at fault, I'd go, huh, really? Like, it's not really grabbing me in terms of...
No, but I feel like...
have to know.
I feel like there's more there than what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about that. But the fact that she's now, like... Now she's in a relationship with Nate, right? Eve's husband?
Yes, and Nate,
He's not a good guy.
And the stupid thing is, it was like 2 chapters in where I'm like, he's a pedophile, isn't he? He straight up is.
Yeah?
And there's a part of me that goes, I'm a little bit disappointed that it was that obvious.
Yeah.
But it's just, I hate this book so much. It's making me actually mad.
Oh, man.
Like...
Well, that's not what you want.
She's a horrible person. She's just a sourpuss cheater. Who likes complaining about her life more than doing anything about it.
And really expensive shoes.
And really expensive shoes. And, like, there's a point where I'm like, okay, it's your money, do what you want with it, but stop lying to your pedophile husband about it. And just own up to it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, I advocate for separate bank accounts because I think half the problems in a marriage are going to be caused by money. So if you each have your own and then the house fund, everybody's going to be happier overall. I'm not saying you can't spend your money on your stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's not as though your children are going hungry or you're in danger of losing the house. But to play this childish game of, oh no, these were the same ones I wore on my last birthday. Oh no, I wore these on the first day of school. Like... Yeah. Get over yourself.
Yeah.
Like, grow up.
Yeah.
You're teaching high school. You're not supposed to be one of the students. They're not supposed to be more mature than you are.
But are they? They don't seem that mature.
No, I would say of all the teenagers, Hudson...
Is he the friend?
He's the friend.
Yeah.
Seems about the closest to being an actual human.
Yes. He does. I think, although he is with her mortal enemy right now, but, I feel like he's going to come back around to be her friend again.
Yeah, but is that going to be good for him? Because she's not exactly stable or sane. Like, I'm just waiting for the diagnosis of what exactly she actually has.
Yeah.
Because there's some kind of psychopathy deal going on there.
There is something going on, that is true. Yeah, I'm finding this book to be a real page-turner. Like, it did not take me long.
It doesn't take long, but I'm
it.
not a fan of the format.
No. Like the back and forth?
No, the tiny chapters.
Oh, the tiny chapter. You don't like that?
No.
Oh, okay.
What are you even doing? Just put in a break. Come on.
Yeah.
We figure this out sometime after Shakespeare.
Sometimes I like that because I feel like those books read faster. And then I feel like I'm like getting through it.
But it's that interruption I find. Like I find with just a break, there's less of the interruption. So, but yeah, no. I don't know. I don't like it. Like, Nate is a horrible human being who I would cheerfully incarcerate. Addie she needs serious psychological help and medication. Eve also needs serious psychological help and medication. The shoe store guy, just go home, dude.
He's just like...
I
don't know.
Put it this way. In my brain, he's like one of those guys that was a quarterback in high school, and that was the high point of his life, and it's all been downhill from there.
But he still thinks he's...
But he still thinks he's all that in a bag of chips.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's who he is in my... So, yeah.
Yeah.
The creepy Santa guy is creepy.
The creepy Santa guy. The other teacher.
The other teacher, yeah, we'll call him Creepy Santa. I don't remember what his name actually is.
There's something there, though, too, because he keeps trying to talk to Eve and, like, warning her about Addie and stuff, and so I'm like, well, what's going on there, really?
Everybody in this book is horrible. But he's also creepy.
Yeah.
Like, it's
He's
not
weird.
exactly like, oh yes, he's the upstanding citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something going on there.
Well, he's an alcoholic, I think.
Yeah.
For one thing.
But that doesn't mean you're a bad person.
No.
It doesn't necessarily make you creepy. There's
Well,
plenty
no,
of jolly alcoholics. And granted, they're few and far between, but there's some of them out there.
But it definitely changes the way you behave.
Yes. Yes.
So,
It's-
yeah.
Not everybody's fun, Bobby.
That's true. Oh, remember when Fun Bobby stops drinking and then he thinks Monica has a drinking problem?
Yep. Poor fun, Bobby.
Ah, yes.
No, like they're all just horrible people, and there's no redeeming qualities in any of them so far.
Sorry, it was really sweet. There was a lot of sugar at the bottom of my tea. It was already a little too sweet. Sorry. I just need some water to wash it down.
So, no, like I hate Nate. I hate Nate. I hate Nate. I hate Nate. He is, put it this way, I spent the majority of the book thinking of creative ways that I could make Nate's life miserable. And I'm very creative.
You said to me before this was giving you Verity vibes.
Yes.
A little bit because of the characters.
Because also every single person in there was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they killed turtles. There's no turtles that have died yet in this one, but
no.
I have no doubt that they will at some point.
I was going to say nobody has died except for Addie's dad, who she killed.
Well, there's somebody burying somebody at the front at the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was flipping through it before, because I'm like, I don't remember if I just missed a name or if they just left it blank.
There was nothing, there was no details there.
Yeah.
And so, now where did that come? So that was, okay, so that's after what we've read.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't the burying of Addie's father.
No. Well, they didn't bury Eddie's father either. They've essentially pushed him down the stairs and then went and hid at Hudson's place.
Right.
And her mom found him when she came home.
It looked like he fell. Because he was also an alcoholic.
Yep.
And so, like, clearly some of her behavior is because of the trauma she's experienced as a child, living with an alcoholic father. But she also clearly needs to get help for that.
Yes.
And, yeah. I know, the characters, they don't give you a lot to sympathize with or, like...
Eve is objectively a bad teacher.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't actually help the students learn.
No, she's almost like a bully.
The shout at them till they get it through their head or leave type.
Yeah. I would not have done well with her as my teacher.
No, she's a terrible teacher. Addie is not a good student.
No.
Like, it literally just doesn't seem like she knows how to learn. And I don't know how much of that is whatever issue she has or just she's been able to get through thus far and now it's catching up with her. Nate is objectively a terrible teacher. Like, when Addie turns in one poem, he immediately goes, "Oh, this is fantastic. This is the best thing I've ever read. You're doing such a good job. Don't change a thing." As a teacher, your job is to go and actually give constructive criticism and critique it and help them improve it and edit and refine. It was so incredibly clear that he was grooming her that it was like the 15 drunk men in this book could find it. Like, it just... I hate him. I hate him so much.
Okay, let's move on from him. And I'm really curious to hear what you think is going to happen in the second half. And I want to record it because I want to know if you have it all figured out or if her twist is going to get you.
What I hope happens is an asteroid.
Okay, that is not going to happen. I can almost 100% guarantee you.
Yes, but I can dream.
You can dream, but...
I honestly don't know. I haven't really thought about the second half. I've been too busy being very, very mad at Nate and very creatively coming up with ways to make his life miserable.
I wrote down the totally wrong title. Okay, so you have no predictions at all?
I'm sure I can come up with something. They won't be very well thought out, and they'll probably all be wrong. I'm
just trying to see if you can figure out where this book is going.
Addie and Nate get caught.
Yeah.
I think Nate's gonna get buried. Or Nate's gonna get deaded, unalived. Whether or not he's the one that Eve is burying feels too obvious.
Mm-hmm. Do we know that the person at the beginning is Eve? I kind of almost think
Hudson is gonna kill Nate.
Oh.
We don't know the person at the beginning is Eve. There's not really any indication.
I was going to say, I didn't think it...
Is there a mention of high heels? Because if so, then it's her.
No.
Knowing her, she'd probably try and dig a grave in 4-inch heels.
No. I don't think it says anything about shoes. There was a second person there for a while, I think. Sorry, it's been like 2 weeks since I read this. So, no, she talks about her palms. Or they. I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be a woman either.
I guess it's kind of just the assumption, since it's pretty much told from Addie's viewpoint and Eve's viewpoint.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Nate is the unaliver.
Really?
Yeah.
The pedophile wins?
I don't know.
I certainly hope not, because I might throw the book at the wall, and that would not be a good thing, because I'm reading an ebook copy.
That would be a twist, though.
I hope not.
The one burying at the beginning. That's my... I feel like when an author has, like, weird, crazy twists that you don't see coming, that once you've read enough of their books, you should be able to figure it out, but I don't...
To a point, yeah.
I'm not that... I don't know. I must just be dense, because I often don't see the twist coming. Or I think I see it, and then it's not that.
Well, I mean, there's some things in the books that we've gone through where you've completely missed it, and I've gone like, how on earth have you missed it? But granted, it's also been vice versa, because there's been a couple books where I'm like, I don't care, I'm skimming. So, but, I don't know. I think it could also be Shoe Boy.
Shoe Boy.
Her shoe salesman
is
the guy that's helping Barry.
Oh. Okay. I'm going to put all the guesses down. See if we got anything right, because I wanted to come in here saying, I guarantee you will not be able to figure out the ending. But...
See, if I throw enough things down, then something will stick.
Something's going to stick. So maybe we stop throwing things down now.
I don't know why, but the idea of Hudson killing Nate is now in my head.
Okay.
Because to me, it kind of makes sense. Because if he's kind of becoming friends again with Addie, and he finds out what Nate is doing to Addie, in a fit of pique, I mean, he's already got one death under his belt.
Well, that's the
Accidental,
thing.
Though
but he seems very uncomfortable with that.
Yes, and I should hope so. But also, the things that I'm imagining doing to Nate, I'm assuming Hudson will have a similar reaction, since he seems to be the only one that's even got a moral. Who then is burying? I still get the feeling it's one of the girls that's burying, partially because they just didn't seem very efficient. And I'm not saying that men are more efficient at digging graves than women, but I don't know, just the vibe that I got.
That these women would not be efficient at it.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the things, like, how deep do you have to dig a grave before the dogs can find it? 12 feet. 12 feet.
Really?
Yes.
And why do they always say 6 feet under?
Because 6 feet under is for normal. 12 feet is for you don't want somebody to find it.
Ah.
You go 12 feet, cover up until 6 foot, then you put a body of a pet, like a dog or something. And then you fill it up, because that way, if a dog will smell something, but when they go to dig up, they'll go, oh,
it's just a dog.
Somebody just buried, spot here. Mm-hmm. And not go any farther. Mm-hmm. So, not tips for criminals. Just
12 feet is a long way to dig by hand.
Yeah.
Really.
Which is also why you shouldn't do murder, unless you really, really, really like digging.
Or you have an alternate method of body disposal.
Yes, boil some lye. We need to stop this now.
This is taking a dark, dark turn.
I have read way too much crime in my life. And my brain just, the way it's wired, compiles tips and tricks for absolutely everything, and does not discriminate, apparently. So, anywho. I wouldn't be shocked if Hudson kills Nate. I also wouldn't be shocked if Shoe Boy kills Nate. Because Shoe Boy could kill Nate so that him and Eve could be in love.
Yeah, but he also, what about his wife and kid?
He didn't seem the type to mind leaving them. Granted, I'm making some assumptions on his character because he doesn't show up a great deal.
But he does go running back every time she calls.
Well, yeah, because presumably he doesn't want things thrown at his head. But, it's not like he... Put it this way. Right now, what's the point in taking off his wife? Eve is married. Mm-hmm. Eve has not indicated any plans to leave Nate. Mm-hmm. So, why risk it?
Yes, that's true.
If their system's working well according to them.
I would disagree personally, but that's just me.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying they're both getting away with it and have for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, although Nate needs to not be so obvious about his manipulation.
Yeah.
Like, he is, like, freakishly obvious.
Mm-hmm.
How he hasn't been arrested already, I do not know. Like, seriously, all signs are pointing to this guy being shady as heck.
Yeah, but you don't know. Maybe this is the first time that he's actually gone through with it.
I doubt it. Debating how much I want to talk about. This might be stuff that Linda has to edit out, and I don't know how much I want to make her edit out. Okay, there's a fairly big age gap between Eve and Nate.
Mm-hmm.
This is my theory. She's complaining that now they're only intimate on a very scheduled basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that started as she got older. He probably married her because she was young, and being plain, perceived her to be more easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that he went from manipulating and marrying Eve, to whatever degree the manipulation was, to not having any victims until Addie.
Mm. Yeah.
I do not believe that for a second.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
So, I suspect there's more victims between that and the fact that he spends a lot of time locked in his office. And,
mm-hmm.
yeah. So,
true.
It's... all signs are pointing towards this is a regular occurrence.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
And there was no hesitation in going for Addie. Like, he knew exactly... He started with the manipulation game from day one.
Mm-hmm.
So, this isn't his first rodeo.
No, and he knew that she was vulnerable, and...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true.
The one prediction that I hope we get at the end of this book is that Addie gets mental health help and survives. Like, ultimately, she is a 16-year-old, 17-year-old who has had a rough life with an alcoholic father and a mother who's never really stood up to him, which she's a victim herself, so, you know, who, I don't know what to degree the creepy Santa thing was her fault.
Mm-hmm.
If it was her fault at all, I would argue there is a point where you are being manipulated. You are young.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that what you think happened is actually what happened there either, though.
I don't know. I'm not saying she's not guilty. I'm not saying she is guilty. I'm just saying that whatever happened there was traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
She desperately needs mental help.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's anything that happens, I hope she doesn't die, and I hope she gets mental help, and I'm not going to go so far as to say lives happily ever after, because that's very unlikely. We live in an economy that sucks. But if there is a character in this book that I hope gets their quote-unquote happily ever after, it's her.
It's her, yeah.
Because so far, is she a likable character? No. Has she done some terrible things? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you make a case for the fact that there is quite a lot of trauma at play and definitely some mental health issues that have contributed to it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
That's where I'm at.
All right.
I'm going to come back next week and be horribly wrong about everything.
Well, you never know. I feel like with Freida McFadden, you just never know what's going to happen at the end.
I mean, I'm curious because everybody, like, oh, it's so twisty, and I'm like, there hasn't been a twist yet.
Mm-mm.
And we're halfway through. So I would not really expect there to be a twist yet, really.
No, her twists come closer to the end.
Like, there's a point where if you put a twist too early in, that's just a plot point.
Yeah.
But, like, so far I haven't... It's been pretty much what I expected in terms of everybody's horrible, and the horrible people are really horrible, and Nate can go down a hole.
And also, we can admit that the writing must be really good to make you feel this strongly about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very Colleen Hoover in that, congratulations, you made me loathe these characters entirely. Like, it's like actors, where you hate them, you just hate them, or you hate a character that they play.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're just doing such a good job of it.
Yep.
The ones that are just like, you're fine, whatever. That's when I'm like, if I had to be in a movie, presumably at gunpoint, I would want to be the villain.
Yeah.
Because there's just way more potential for fun there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you can go full Snidely Whiplash. But, that being said, a book of all villains is...
It's also difficult to read.
well, there's a point where I'm like, yes, people suck. Why am I reading about this? Mm-hmm. I know people suck.
And I would like there to be at least one character that I like or can identify with.
Some redeemable quality in someone. Because right now, Hudson's the only one where I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, you don't kill somebody, but to be fair, a lot more accidental, and then you didn't mean to hide it. Somebody kind of half made you.
Yeah.
And you were scared.
And then you ditched your friend, though, right after it.
Yeah. Which, again, fair enough. She kind of made you do stupid things.
Yeah.
So, but what about you? Any predictions?
Aside from Nate being the real unaliver, I think,
I will not accept it if he's not the one that's not unalived. I demand a recount.
I think that he's going to unalive Eve, and
I could see that.
Addie will be okay.
I could see him unaliving Eve. I just can't see him not getting unalived after that. The husband, the wife disappears and the husband doesn't get put under a microscope.
But as we've already seen, he is a good manipulator, so perhaps...
No, he's not.
Well...
He's an obvious manipulator.
But perhaps he can
Manipulate?
manipulate the police.
I certainly hope.
But, I don't know, I think there's more to it than this, but I don't know what.
I hope so. We're only 40 chapters in.
Yes.
80 chapters in total, a little bit ridiculous.
It is kind of a lot. I don't disagree.
It's not a long book, though. Like,
it's not long. The chapters are short.
I went through it in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
But, well, we'll find out, I guess.
We are back with part 2 of The Teacher by Freida McFadden. So, thoughts? Opinions?
It wasn't very twisty. Like, ultimately, I'd argue if your twist is in the epilogue and actually has no consequence or relation and affects nothing really in the story in terms of outcome, it's not a twist. It's kind of just a bonus scenes.
Okay.
Yeah. Blooper reel.
Yeah.
Like, it's not... A twist, by my way of thinking, needs to come before the end of the book. Like,
Well,
even if the twist is in the last chapter, fine. But an epilogue, after everything's actually said and done and whatnot, yeah, sure, you find a little bit more information, but it's not really... It doesn't impact anything.
well, it leaves you hanging.
No, it left me annoyed.
All right.
Because the hypocrisy of the entire book.
Well, yes.
Like...
That is true.
Eve was so disgusted that when she found out what Nate was doing, but then she was literally doing... I'm not going to say the same thing because it's a pattern of abuse versus a one-time incident. But she was doing...
Yeah.
Also taking advantage of a minor.
I know.
Like, kettle, raven that you somehow trapped and found, and I need to know how.
Do you think that... Like, I know he was a student at her school, but presumably it's a large school, right?
No, we
So
didn't really
she-
get an indication of size.
She maybe wouldn't have had all students in all of her classes. Like, she wouldn't have taught every single student at the school.
Well, they did mention moving Addie to a different math class. So
Yeah.
there's at least two math teachers.
So do you think perhaps she didn't know who he was? Or that he was a minor?
Highly unlikely.
Just throwing it out there.
Because unless the guy's got a full beard, I'm pretty sure you can look at him and go, well, you seem on the young side.
Well...
And I'd argue there's the responsibility of the older person, if the other person seems fairly young, to go, just, checking your ID here.
Because didn't she
Confirm your age.
Didn't she always talk about his wife and kid?
Yeah.
So...
She made the assumption that there's a wife and kid. But
So-
young is still young.
I know, but that doesn't mean minor. He could be young and not a minor.
He could be young and not a minor, yeah. But the chances that she didn't see him at the school at all, walking down a hallway, in passing, he's on the football team.
I know, I'm just saying.
I do not for a second believe that she didn't know that he was underage.
I mean, she was pretty into her shoes.
But I don't think she stared at them every time she walked.
Well, you never know.
Unlikely.
I mean, if I had fancy shoes like that, I might.
I wouldn't, because then I'd fall on my face. And then I'd break my fancy shoes.
And your face.
And my face.
Good point. I don't need any more help breaking my face.
I don't want to take that chance.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
But no.
I don't know. Just a thought.
I don't for a second believe she didn't know. I think she chose to ignore it, but I think she knew.
Okay.
So, I don't know. The book was fine. Like, it was well written enough that I'm mad at it, and that is a thing. But ultimately, I don't think the twist was very twisty. And the book itself, the whole, like, oh, she's not dead. Like, literally, the second they cut from Nate choking her to Addie coming back into the kitchen, I went, she's not dead. There's no way she's dead.
Why did you think that?
Because they tried to kill the woman twice already. And there was no... I don't know how to put this. There was no indication she was actually dead. Like...
I thought he said he checked her pulse.
Extremities. You need to check the main. Sorry, again, not tips. But, like... And given the situation that he was in, I don't trust that him checking a pulse, A, that he could find it, and B, that he would actually be able to tell. And if you've just been choked out, I'm not entirely sure how that affects your pulse. I'm assuming somehow.
Yeah.
Either elevated, lowered, whatever. But there was no, like, her neck was at a funny angle, or, you know, blood spewed over the floor. Like, there was no, oh, yes, she did.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't any, yeah, no, you're dead. You're dead, you know.
Yeah.
So, as soon as they cut from him choking, but not actually completing it, to Addie walking in, red flag. At that point, I'm like, yeah, she's still alive. So, I mean, with a presumably very thick skull. Although, I will say, one of the things I do really appreciate about modern media is the utilization of frying pans. I feel since Tangled came out, the amount of frying pans being used as weapons has increased tenfold. And I appreciate that.
There are these, they're called Disney Doorables. They're little figures, and they're like blind box things that you never know which ones you're going to get, and you collect them, whatever. There is one, it's a little Rapunzel, and she's holding a frying pan, and it's the cutest thing.
My favorite line out of that entire film is, man, I've got to get me one of these. And don't think I don't say that every time I see a frying pan in a store. I'm very annoying, but I do appreciate the use of frying pans now. And I mean, admittedly, they are quite a weapon. Like, you've got a broad surface area, easily handleable, you know, generally pretty heavy construction.
Yeah.
It's...
That's right.
I don't know, it's definitely something where if I had to pick a weapon...
That would be your weapon of choice?
If I had to pick a weapon out of an everyday object, it would be top 3.
Okay.
So, but again, no tips here. We need to stop doing crime ones. I feel like now it's just becoming a, here's how to get away with it. Yeah.
I will say, this is definitely not my favorite book of hers. After, like, the first half I sped through, I sped through the second half fairly quickly also, but it just felt like it was dragging. I was like, come on, let's move it along. This is, I don't know. I wasn't engaged in the second half until, like, the very end.
For me, it was, the second half was very soap opera-y. Like, I was fully expecting Dr. Derek Ramori to climb out of an elevator shaft at any time. It was very, she's dead, she's not dead, she's dead, she's not dead. Like,
yeah.
And there's a point where I'm like, really? You're messing with him with your shoes?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, kudos for messing with his head. It is a little bit of psychological torture. I think for that guy, bring it on. Considering the psychological manipulation he's been doing for how long, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the Raven attacking him too. I hope no ravens were harmed in the making of this book. Still have questions about that. Where do you get a raven? Like,
I don't know.
Asking for a friend.
Sure.
I know they'll follow you if you feed ravens and crows and stuff long enough. They will quite often become your friends and follow you around.
Ooh, yuck.
And, well, I'm assuming if you are feeding them, you're kind of
okay
you're
okay with that. True.
But they will also sometimes start bringing you gifts of just shiny stuff that they find, which I just find fabulous.
That's interesting.
Don't see a dolphin do. I feel like I've gone very anti-dolphin recently.
I know.
Something about it. But I forget where I was going with this.
Talking about
Raven.
where she got the raven.
But, like, that requires long-term training. I don't know where you just find one out of the blue. Especially with presumably quite a significant amount of head trauma.
In nature? Maybe she didn't find it. Maybe it was Shoeboy.
How did Shoeboy find a raven?
In nature.
Okay, Janine. I will take you to nature and you get me a raven.
No, I'm not going to do that because I hate birds.
I know. But anyway, that's the one thing that kind of... That was jumping the shark for me. I'm like, okay, the muddy shoes, the pumpkin thing, cool. The raven, where I'm like, there's too many logistical questions here, lady. I
did like that they were messing with his head, though.
Yes, that I definitely approve of. But
that was good.
The just random appearance of a raven, to me, was kind of... It took you out of it? Yeah. And wait, excuse me, what? Where'd you get this thing?
That thought never even crossed my mind.
Maybe it's just me.
Well, it's not something I'd ever even think of doing, so...
Catching a raven?
Yes. Or any bird, for that matter.
Anyway, we've done enough raven. I will also say, Nate is basic as heck. I'm sorry, your favorite poem ever is The Raven?
I hate The Raven. This is such a stupid poem. Sorry, Poe.
He's dead, he'd care.
I know. Sorry, Poe lovers.
I'm just, no. Gilmore Girls, the night of the Poes.
The two Poes.
Just imagine them coming after you.
And
presumably with a flock of very well-trained ravens.
They talk about making it a drinking game every time they say nevermore. Oh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It's fine as a poem. However, given the fact he's an English teacher, presumably an English major, and a self-proclaimed poet, it really, seriously, dude?
Yeah.
That is if you stop somebody on the street and go, hey, quick, what's your favorite poem? They go, the Raven, nevermore.
Because that's the only one you could think of.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so basic.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he also likes pumpkin spice lattes, although pumpkins might have a bit of a negative connotation for him now.
There's nothing wrong with pumpkin spice lattes.
Agree to disagree. But anyway, I feel like I've gone slightly off track there. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna keep ranting. His poetry is so bad.
Yes.
It is so cringy.
Yes, it is.
At the end, which does her acknowledgements and everything, when she said that she asked her daughter to write, the cringiest poem ever, I'm like, is that the poem that he's using?
Oh.
Because I'm like, if so, that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
I didn't read the acknowledgements because by that point I was done.
I did. But yeah, basically she asked her daughter to write a poem and, just super cringy. And I don't think she's super clear about whether it was a poem that Addie wrote or a poem that Nate wrote.
Okay.
But I really hope it was the poem that Nate wrote because it does sound like it was written by about a 14-year-old girl.
Huh.
It's just terrible. So, but, anywho, sorry I interrupted.
That's okay. I don't remember what I was going to say, but I will say, this is my 5th or 6th Freida McFadden book, and I think, I don't know, that I need to read more Freida McFadden after this. I'm not sure, her books they're so easy to read, they're fast, and usually, plot-driven, very, kind of keeps you...
They do move quick.
They do.
Or, it moves quick, this is the only one I've read.
Yeah. But they all are like that.
Okay.
And...
Are they all also, all the characters are horrible people?
Not all. Not all to this extent, anyways.
Okay.
Yeah. But usually they do have a dark past.
I'm fine with a dark past, but, they're just objectively terrible people.
Yeah. So,
I have a hard time reading those books, because I'm like, why? If I want to see terrible people, I'll turn on the news. Watch the Trump trial.
But, yeah, she's just so popular right now. But she has, books coming out almost constantly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she writes too fast.
Almost on the level of James Patterson.
Not quite that bad, because I think she's still actually writing her own books.
We're going to get into that later.
Jimmy?
No, writing her own books.
Ah. Well,
we'll get into it later.
I sense a foreshadowing of fun facts. Nevermore.
I'd be like Phoebe and Joey and do an evil laugh.
Yes. That's the one thing I wish I could do, and I can't do a good evil laugh.
No?
No.
I've been watching a lot of Friends lately, so it's just in my mind.
Mhm.
Anyway, yeah, I think I said last time, like I read the Housemaid's Secret, or just The Housemaid. I'm not sure what the first one was. I read that one and I thought it was really good, and then I read 5 more books in that year by her. So, but now I'm like,
It's getting all kind of samey.
I don't know. Yeah, but one I read took place in the psychiatric ward of a hospital.
Okay.
And so that one was a little different. But a lot of them are couples, and they're having troubles in their marriage, and
My Frida, what are you trying to work out here?
I don't know, somebody's having an affair. There's a lot of that.
That gets a little bit boring after a while.
Yeah. It does.
I don't know.
It is a little bit the same.
I don't know how to put this. There's some authors where I'm like, you're just writing about everyday life. Like death and taxes. Why am I reading this? Oh, he's having an affair. Congratulations. Thousands of people a year. Millions of people a year.
Yeah.
There has to be something to get me interested.
Mm-hmm.
Is it with an alien? Are aliens coming down to Earth? Are you actually in a mental hospital? And you all just thought it was. And actually, you don't even have a husband. That's a teddy bear. Give me a twist. There has to be something, some kind of hook. Mm-hmm. And, this book didn't have it. There was no point where I'm like, oh, yes! I was just kind of okay, whatever. I'm just continuing to hate everybody. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She's just Eve is just objectively, priorities woman.
Yeah. They were not great characters.
Someone is in your house, broke in,
mm-hmm.
and your thought is, oh, the only thing I can attack them with is my pumps. But I think I'd rather let a mugger take me than ruin my shoes.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Very shoe obsessed.
Mm-hmm. The mugger would return you because you're annoying.
Yes, perhaps. Perhaps they would.
It's just such an unlikable character.
They all were. That's the thing. There was none of these characters had any redeeming qualities.
I'm glad Addie got help at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one thing where I'm please, for the love of my sanity, she's a redeemable character.
Mm-hmm.
At the very, very, very end.
Mm-hmm.
But during the actual book, I'm honey, no.
But her bully was redeemed.
Yeah.
That part was okay.
Well, I wouldn't say redeemed, more explained.
Yeah, I guess.
What were my predictions again?
You said Addie and Nate get caught. Nate is unalived, maybe by Hudson or Shoeboy, who are the same person. Mm-hmm. Shoeboy helped bury the body. Addie gets mental health help and survives. Those were your predictions.
Okay, so I was 4 for 4. Great. That tells you how untwisty this book was.
Yeah.
And the one other prediction, I don't think you wrote it down, was that Eve was one of his first victims.
Oh, okay.
And I was right. I hate how much I was right. Because she was 15 and he was fresh out of college when he started using the same damn poem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, dude. Seriously, can you not write another poem?
Yeah.
Surely there's another cringy poem out there in your little noggin that would work to lure teenage girls. No. Or how about you just don't do that? That's an option. But she was the first victim. So. Mm-hmm. The one thing I was a little bit surprised by, not as a twist, just as a, you're not quite as horrible as I thought you were, was that when Addie broke into Eve's house and Eve found her, Eve did actually recognize that it wasn't Addie's fault. She was being manipulated and everything, and she is a child, and it's on Nate.
Yeah, she had compassion for her.
Exactly, and was actually do you know what? And I think at a previous point, she was actually talking to Nate about getting her counseling and that kind of thing, and then Nate used sex to manipulate her not to, which I'm like, dude, really?
I know. Eve was so desperate for his affection, right? And he knew. And
a classic victim behavior, really. Yeah. But I was surprised that Eve actually did, in that moment, recognize that Addie was just a troubled kid, not her fault. Yeah. So that was more common sense than I thought she had. considering her views on muggers and shoes.
Ah, yes.
At one point, I think when she was deliberating about whether or not to go to police or to school or something like that about Nate, her argument that, oh no, they're going to think I'm crazy and not take me seriously because I hoard shoes. Seriously? Like, I'm sorry, but hoarding shoes is kind of basic. Like,
well, you think that because you don't hoard shoes.
No. But, like, unless you have, like, an absurd number of shoes. There was... what was the political family? Was it the Philippines? Thailand? I think it was Thailand. Anyway, a country's leader, I'm not going to say dictator because I don't remember to what degree he was actually elected, or one of those guys where it's like, I'm staying in power, remove me, I dare you. His wife had entire rooms of shoes, or like in the millions of dollars worth of shoes, something like $10 million worth of shoes. That is when I can no longer take you seriously because you have an issue.
Or too much money.
Or too much money. Well, they stole the money from their citizens. I want to say his name is Bongo Bongo.
Bongo Bongo?
Bong Bong? This is going to bug me. Hang on, let me Google. Pretty sure it's Bong Bong. Or is Bong Bong his son, who is now the current leader?
Oh, great. And who gets the shoes when she dies?
She was arrested.
Well, who gets the shoes?
Bong Bong Marcos, president of the Philippines.
I
kid you not. His mother was the shoe collector.
Bong Bong's mother?
Bong Bong's mother, yes.
Did Bong Bong inherit the shoes, and does he wear them around the castle?
I don't think Bong Bong inherited the shoes. I think his sisters may have. Although I'm not sure how much was seized when the government, or when they were deposed, shall we say. Right. But yeah, anyway, anybody that's interested, look up the history of leaders in the Philippines. It's actually quite fascinating. Same woman with the shoe craziness once made them turn her plane around because she wanted cheese. And I mean, I think we've all been there, but generally we don't turn the plane around. Generally we just deal.
Most of us don't have that kind of power, let's be honest.
Enough, yes.
Like, you know.
Anyway, random fun facts about leaders in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway. What was my next argument? Because trust me, I've got a list.
How many more? Good grief.
Oh, quite a few.
Oh my goodness! Look at that. I have literally nothing to say about this book.
See, it was making me mad. And when you make me mad, I've got a lot to say.
I just feel like very meh. I was surprised at the end when Hudson turned out to be Shoe Boy. Yeah, it was a little twisty. Yeah.
No, see, I just hate Nate that much that I've got notes.
So we're going to be here a while is what you're saying.
Oh, yes. Oh,
boy.
Point 383. Nate. At one point he says, writers feel emotion more strongly than the rest of the population.
Sure.
No. No. You may be able to articulate them more effectively than the rest of the population, but you do not feel them more than your average person. And in fact, with Nate, I would argue he is some form of narcissist and sociopath, and his ability to feel emotions in general is skewed. I hate this guy so much. He also said he was gifting his students with Poe, and thus they couldn't study more Shakespeare or something like that. No, dude, you're not gifting them with Poe. Unless you have Poe in a box somewhere. You're not gifting them with Poe. You're doing your job. I'm not gifting anyone with Poe. You're not gifting anyone with Poe. Do we have Poe? We have Poe. He's not in a box. But just that, the ego on this man is insane.
Yeah.
Like, he's just... I don't like him. I do not like him. I do not like that man, Ted Cruz.
I do not like him, Sam I am.
John Oliver does a whole thing on, I do not like that man, Ted Cruz. I do not like his far-right views. I do not like him in a boat. I do not like him in a boat. Anyway, neither here nor there. Nor anywhere. Nevermore. I had caffeine.
Yeah. Too much. But is it? Is it too much? Sorry.
You also had caffeine.
I had, like, this teeny tiny amount of caffeine.
That would have me climbing the ceiling like Spider-Man.
That's like nothing to me.
I have a very low caffeine tolerance. Don't drink coffee, you'll get the
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure an espresso would make me the first woman on the moon.
Let's try. I'm going to bring you an espresso tomorrow.
There is one movie. I want to say it's Red, like the Red Riding Hood animated movie.
Okay.
Where they give a squirrel coffee. And he, flies around going, I'm a crazy rabbit squirrel! And that's basically my brain when I have caffeine.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Alrighty.
So, anyway, continuing on with the actual book. Nate is dumb. Like, just actually dumb. He left Addie in the middle of a pumpkin patch.
A pumpkin patch. Pumpkin.
In the middle of a pumpkin patch. What do you think was going to happen? Like, why?
Well, he's a word I can't say.
I've said it in my notes many times.
I'm sure.
Like, if he thinks that, oh, I've left her there, and thus it further incriminates her because she's going to have to get a ride home somehow, and presumably, like, he thought she'd hitchhike with a trucker, which, dude, presumably that person would then go, oh, yes, I saw her in the vicinity at the time of the murder, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you left me there, and I'm a minor, I'm mad at you. What incentive is there for me not to go to the police and go, excuse me, he killed her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's manipulated me because I'm a minor and I can get away with...
Well,
you might do a little stint in juvie, but that's it.
In the end, they did go to the police. Her and the bully, whose name I cannot remember.
Kenzie?
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey?
Something with a K.
Yeah, special K. But, it's so short-sighted.
Yeah.
You have to think past the nose on the end of your face, dude. He's just a bad criminal. Just terrible. And he went home. He tootled around for a bit, and then he called the police, and he went, it takes real guts for me to call the police on the woman that I just murdered. No, it doesn't. That's step one of, so you've killed your spouse, what do you do now?
Mm-hmm.
No, dude, you're just an unlikable, selfish pedophile. When he died, I'm like, yes, excellent, wonderful. Pick a different poem. Or put it on his headstone.
Can we agree Nick is a bad guy? He did a lot of bad things. He's a sucky poet.
I like a good villain. He's not. He's a pathetic villain. He's one of those, poke you in the head and go, I'm not touching you, can't do anything kind of villains. He wasn't written well. He's written well enough for me to be annoyed at him, and for me not to like him, but he's not written well as there's a reason why the other characters in this book should be afraid of him, or, I can understand why they were manipulated by him because he's good at manipulation. He's not. He's just not good as a character. And I don't mean, morally good or anything, just, he's not well written. There's not a lot of thought put into actually developing his character in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
He's just objectively... He's a dry slice of bread. It's not bread anymore. It's not good as bread, but it's also not toasty enough to be toast. That is Nate.
Could you turn it into a crouton?
No, not even that.
What is happening to us?
We're now comparing people to bread.
Mm.
And it just annoys me because, I don't know, I feel like if you had taken this book to an editor and went, okay, good first draft, let's flesh it out a bit, you could have something pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
But everything just falls flat. Eve is not a sympathetic character, but she's also not, bad enough for you to really hate her to any degree.
Mm-hmm.
Addie is troubled, but also manipulated and does some bad stuff herself, where it's kind of okay, me. Hudson did end up having more of a role than I anticipated, but even that was kind of more of a, okay.
Yeah.
It's just a blah book.
Mm-hmm.
And the writing itself is good in some parts and really bad in others. I made a note here because it was starting to really tick me off. Addie's chapters ending with a sentence about how much she hates Eve and wish she was gone was incredibly clumsy writing.
It's supposed to be foreshadowing, but...
I have seen more subtle foreshadowing from a brick that's hit me in the head.
Well...
It's clumsy writing.
I know. Yes, I can see what you're doing all over the place here.
It's just... it's good enough for me to hate characters.
Mm-hmm.
strongly dislike characters, other than Nate. I hate him. But it's not good enough from a technical standpoint in terms of, like if you had just removed those sentences at the end of every chapter, you would have actually gained more in terms of foreshadowing. And even that would still be, like, it's not exactly subtle. Like, it's one of the oldest playbooks of, oh, I hate his wife. He should be with me. He really loves me instead. Like, you're not. It's not exactly groundbreaking. You didn't have to put, oh, I hate his wife at the end of every chapter. It's clumsy. Stop. Like, at the end, I just put, that means Eve is also beautiful. I hate everyone in this book. This book feels try-hard. And that's basically it sums up.
All right.
She can do better. She can do better. And that it's disappointing that she didn't. Like, it might be that once again we just managed to pick the worst book that the author has. Because we're so talented at that.
Though her books would be getting better. Like, generally, the author's books get better as they go along.
I would argue no.
Well, it depends on the author.
Because I think, these days, you have to be able to write a pretty good book in order to actually get picked up by a publisher. However, if you can get picked up by a publisher, and your book is good enough, and interesting enough, has enough of a twist, whatever, to hit TikTok, it'll take off. And at that point, you're money in the bank. So the more money you can get from books that are being released, get them out quicker. Like, I'd argue the quality of writing actually goes down because of the pressure to publish more and more.
Maybe.
And for the publishing company, it's more of a, we've got the newest title by Freida McFadden, as opposed to, we've got the best book by Freida McFadden. So,
yeah.
Yes, it can improve based on experience and writing, and, you evolve like anything else. But I'd argue the pressure of maintaining a publishing schedule and people's willingness to read anything by big-name author decreases quality over time. That's my theory.
Okay.
So, but
sure.
Anywho, speaking of TikTok, Book Talk, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do. And I was going to talk about Book Talk and Bookstagram because that's where Freida McFadden really started to gain popularity. Probably a little over a year ago. But instead, because I feel like most people who are readers are probably familiar with the Book Talk, Bookstagram world, we're going to talk about a Reddit thread that I found about some Freida McFadden controversy.
I was hoping it'd be about crows and ravens.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. Had I known that there was a raven thing, we could have done a fun fact about that.
That wasn't, I wasn't at that part when I did the fun facts.
Oh, bummer.
So, okay, so most of this is from the thread. So when I say I don't mean me, I mean the people on the thread who are speaking.
Them I, not me I.
Yeah.
Meow.
So, I just finished reading The Housemaid, and the plot is so similar to The Last Mrs. Parrish. Last week, I read another book of hers, The Wife Upstairs, and that one is almost identical to Verity.
What?
Is it just me, or did you all think the same? Did you continue reading it, and did you like it? Did you think her protagonists all have similar backgrounds? Down and out, desperate, strong women? I admittedly still enjoyed the books and will continue reading her books. I just wanted to discuss the similarities of it to the other books. So that was like the beginning thread of the thread. And then the rest is like the comments underneath that I'm going to read.
Based on the assumption that The Wife Upstairs is pretty close to Verity and the book that we just read, Desperate, Strong Women? I wouldn't describe either of these characters as strong women.
Well,
desperate, yes. Strong, no.
So,
granted, my perception may be slightly different, but you're not surviving the Blitz here.
Yes, every last one of her books is a blatant ripoff of someone else's genius. That's her formula. She rewrites other people's stories with a few minor differences and an extra twist or two. From Verity by Colleen Hoover to And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. One is basically psycho, and then we have the one that's literally titled The Devil Wears Scrubs. Seriously, Freida? There's another that was released in January of last year called Do You Remember? It's a regurgitation of Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson, which later became a film with Nicole Kidman and Colin Firth. First, I don't know how she rationalizes this in her head. Not one story with her name on it that I've encountered stems from a place all her own. She's either in total denial or she's found a way to deal with feeling like a fraud all the time. Second, I don't know how there aren't more conversations about this online. Your post here may very well be the only time anyone has ever attempted to build a discussion around this. Real readers, or people who read a lot, notice and are bothered enough by it to leave reviews or comments saying as much, but, for the most part, her plagiarizing ass has pretty much avoided the radar. Pardon my French. Maybe this confirms something that I've been thinking for the past decade with rising certainty. We really are living in a sea of vapid, image-obsessed, lifetime movie-loving Kardashian clones. Easily amused, easily confused.
I should put that on a t-shirt.
I thought you'd like that one. In McFadden's defense, all of her books are also pretty similar to each other. There's always a handsome husband, a wife that is over the hill, a housemaid or live-in servant that is young and beautiful. There are issues of jealousy. The husband is charming and kind. The wife is a monster. The story is from the perspective of the maid. The plot twist is that the husband turns out to be the real monster. The wife was a victim the whole time. There are only so many stories you can make with these elements, so it is not surprising that other authors have written similar stories. I'm a bookseller, and I've been getting so many returns and questions because the books are carbon copies of each other. We call her Freida McFraudulent. I admittedly still enjoy the books and will continue reading her books. This is the whole problem. As long as people keep buying her books, this will continue. An author can be shut down for plagiarism, but as long as she changes just enough detail, she can skate through, even if she steals entire premises and plots and just rehashes them. Freida McFadden is now a millionaire, and it's millions of unsuspecting readers that put her there, and millions more that know better but just continue anyway and will keep her there. And then there's a statement here from Freida that I'm going to share. Based on the reviews I received, I've since read Verity. Colleen Hoover is undoubtedly a very talented writer, and I have nothing but respect for her. But I do believe her book is very different from mine, aside from a few plot points. She has written a romantic suspense, which by nature involves a lot of sex, and it's not meant to represent true brain injury. Her book largely is about the relationship of a woman and her children. In brackets, I don't want to give her plot away. I had heard about her book before publishing, and I was a little concerned, but friends told me that there are only so many plots out there, and everybody makes each idea their own. I can guarantee there are no pieces of dialogue that are the same. That would be impossible. Perhaps Hoover is also a fan of Rebecca and Jane Eyre and Gone Girl, and we were both inspired by the same pieces. And then, in brackets, I would not be so vain as to think she has read my book, Brain Damage.
I can guarantee there are no pieces of dialogue that are the same. That's a weak argument.
Her whole argument, I feel like, is weak. Even my friends say that there's only so many plots out there, and each author makes it their own.
My friends say a lot, too. That doesn't mean I'm going to them for legal advice. Well,
so far there's been no litigation, so...
Verity? Her book is largely about a relationship of a woman and her children?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, the wife and her children.
But
it's not really about that.
It's very much about the relationship of the woman and her husband, and the woman and not her husband.
Yes.
Like, yeah, the kids are there, but I wouldn't say that's the main plot point.
Right. So her statement, I feel like, is kind of weak.
I feel like we should now do a compare and contrast between, and read one of her books and one of the books that people say she's copied. And see, thing is, it's one of those, you see it in movies a lot, where you'll have two films coming out that are incredibly similar at the same time. And when asked, they apparently, the production teams and everything, know nothing about the other one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes not even the fact it was happening, or like literally nothing. But the influences and trends of society mean that people will have similar ideas.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens on a repeated basis, or if it keeps happening, there is a point where it's... I think there's reasonable cause for doubt in terms of the originality of the content. Mm-hmm. This is the first Freida McFadden book that I've read, so I couldn't tell you if it is similar to another book out there as far as I know.
I have read The Last Mrs. Parrish as well as The Housemaid, but The Last Mrs. Parrish I read such a long time ago that I don't remember
enough details.
They both involve nannies, I can tell you that. I'm just checking the publishing date on them just to see how far apart they were actually.
I mean, based on the titles alone, The Wife Upstairs sounds identical to Verity.
Yes.
I'm assuming by the title that there's a wife upstairs in some type of brain damage situation, and someone comes in and swipes her husband out from under her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
So The Last Mrs. Parrish was published in 2018, and The Housemaid was published in 2022. So 4 years later. So that's long enough that... And The Last Mrs. Parrish was a fairly popular book.
Yeah.
Like, it was one of Reese Book Club pick, I think.
Oh, okay.
So, pretty popular, I would say.
Like, to me, the biggest piece of damning evidence for the reduce, reuse, recycle element is the number of books that she comes out with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she comes out with a lot of books very quickly. And I could come out with a heck of a lot of books if I just
Copied.
basically did a minor rewrite.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that's what she's doing, but it would make the publishing schedule make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, when you read her author info, she is a practicing physician specializing in brain injury.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that while also coming out with this amount of books.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel, just based on hours in a day, something's slipping somewhere. And I really, 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 really hope it's not the brain injury thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many hours she spends doing that. Maybe enough just to keep her license. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Thing is, if you're a specialist, you know how it goes. Local practice, yada yada.
Yeah. But anyway, it was just something interesting that I found online. Whether it's true or not, I can't say. I'm not making any accusations or anything. Just...
Don't send your lawyers after us.
No, please.
Like...
These are other people's words, not mine.
There is a point where, like, yeah, I agree with her unnamed friends that there's only so many plot points.
Mm-hmm.
I think at some point somebody said that there's 6 stories in the universe, and everything beyond that is just situational. It's slight tweaking to... But the base elements of the story remain the same. A lot of books out there.
Yeah.
And while some authors have brilliant original ideas, Brandon Sanderson, I do I do the book orders.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, it is mind-numbing by the end of the adult fiction.
Yeah.
Because there is only so many times where I can read, her husband was not what he seemed, and she now has to uncover the secrets and see what that means.
Mm-hmm.
His wife was kidnapped. It's up to him to find her.
Like,
yeah.
Your son was kidnapped, your wife was kidnapped. You now have to find them. Like, it's so many variations of the same dang thing that it is, and like 750 of these things I have to read.
Yeah.
It is, like, mind-numbing, and there's a point where it's, what really differs?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there'd be differences probably if you actually read the books. But if you were to go through and actually fully read each one of those books, by the end you just go with, they were all the same.
Yeah. I had a patron in on Saturday who was returning a book that they read, and they were like, everybody needs to read this book. It is something that I've never read before. It was a young adult male with an eating disorder, and the book was written in prose.
Interesting.
And she said, this is a topic that we need to talk about more because it happens, and everybody should read this book. It was so good. So immediately I checked it out. I have not yet read it, but probably next on my list.
Like, it's something different.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I look for in books.
Yeah. It's... I don't want just a rinse and repeat.
No.
And it's one detail, really, that was changed there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a young male with an eating disorder, not a young girl with an eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Because a young girl with an eating disorder in the book written in prose, that's out there, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a relatively common approach to the issue of eating disorders. The fact that it's a guy changes up everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's you just one little quarter turn, and you end up with something completely different.
Yep.
And I feel like with book talk and just popular trending authors and writing in general, there's the, oh, well, this worked for that person, so if I do the same thing, it'll work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you end up with just carbon copies of Like, it happened with Twilight. It happened with Hunger Games. It's happening with Colleen Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
You end up with just copies. And it does nobody any good.
No.
Like, I get it, writing's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the really successful authors took something and turned it on its head.
Yep. And that's why I haven't written a book yet, because I can't quite figure out.
Write it upside down. Like a bat hanging from the ceiling.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, would you read another Freida McFadden book?
I might if I was looking for something, like, fast and easy. But I'm not gonna, like, seek her out anymore, I don't think.
Kind of been done with her a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I know what my response to would I read another Freida McFadden book would be.
Hard pass.
Nevermore. I couldn't resist. So that's what we thought of the book, but those are just our opinions, and we'd like to hear yours. Leave us a comment.
Thanks for joining us for Books and Banter, and thanks to our editor, Linda. We'll see you next time.